I know, it's,
All right, Rich, I'm all set on my end, so just let me know when you're ready and I'll record.
Okay. I'm all ready. We have a quorum. Okay, good morning. We're going to call the Governance Committee meeting to order. Our first item on the agenda is to accept the November 15th, 2021 meeting transcript. That was forwarded to all members. They had an opportunity to review and make any revisions, so we'll accept that for the record. The next order of business is public comment. If there is anyone who wishes to address the meeting, either in person or virtually, I ask that you state your name, your address, and you'll have 5 minutes to address the committee. So at this time, we'll open the meeting to any possible public comment. Okay, hearing none, we'll close that portion of the meeting and move on to our agenda items. First item on the agenda is a review, discussion, recommendation to approve an extension of the December 1st, 2020 sales and use tax exemption with One North Depot LLC from December 1st, 2022 through and including December 1st, 2022, the total of which will not exceed $360,000. Stacy.
yes, as has sort of been the theme of a lot of our projects requiring sales tax exemptions this year. I think the continued labor shortage, supply chain shortage, and issues related to increasing costs on some of these projects have necessitated the need for extension of sales tax exemption. So this is a similar request from One North Depot. That's the development for loft apartments, market rate loft apartments. It's a project we approved a few years ago. It has taken longer, and there is a note from Josh, a letter from Josh Bishop in here as to outlining the reason for the delays in this project. The request is for specifically an exemption, extension of the sales tax exemption for the project through the end of 2022. So there's no request for increase in the amount of funds or no sense that the project will not continue, just continued time related to delays and cost increases. So.
Is there any questions for Stacy or any comments? Okay, we'll entertain a motion.
Motion.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
I'll
Motion
second
by-
Jim.
Motion by Jim, second by Cheryl. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. Next item on the agenda is a review, discussion, recommendation to accept an application from UB Family LLC, a special purpose entity established by the company for a leaseback transaction to facilitate the financing of the construction and development of 549 plus parking spaces within the 5-level municipal parking garage located at 183 Water Street in the city of Binghamton, to be owned by the Binghamton Local Development Corporation, and the acquisition, construction, development, renovation, and equipping of approximately 123 new apartments to be constructed on 5 floors above the aforementioned municipal parking garage, to provide for a state and local sales and use tax exemption benefit in the amount not to exceed $905,680, to provide for a mortgage tax exemption in an amount not to exceed $187,000, to provide for a real property tax exemption in the amount not to exceed $18,452,086 pursuant to the pilot schedule attached hereto as Exhibit A, including a deviation from the agency's uniform tax exemption policy, and authorizing the agency to set and conduct a public hearing with respect thereto. So Stacy, before I ask you to explain all this, let me put this question on the table first. my understanding is at this point, we're accepting the application. And we are not going to schedule a public hearing until we have a further opportunity to delve into this deeper. Is that correct?
That's correct. So really, essentially, the first step in this to accept the application, it really sets the deliberation period. It does not assign or assume any approval or withdraw of any benefits that are sought. It simply opens up really the deliberation period. And the reason I say that is because at this point in time, once an application is accepted, it becomes part of the public record. So the application goes to the website and it, becomes part of the public deliberation. So without that action of accepting, we really, we really don't have a formal project for the board to deliberate on. So the purposes of today are to accept the application. And yes, we, within our purview, we could set that public hearing date at which time the board feels ready to move further with it.
Okay, so I'll go ahead. Somebody have a question?
I did. Are we contemplating as part of the analysis to use some of the new analytical tools?
We do, yes, we do have a cost benefit using ours, and then as well, it will be reviewed through a third party with a national NDC will
Okay.
also provide review before the board, does any further action on this.
Okay.
Yep, so that's in process.
So my question, Stacy, then is, so we're gonna basically move forward then, whether it be in the January meeting, actually start, or whenever all the data that you're getting assembled is ready, we will then start to deliberate this, where we'll look at the pilot, look at the financing and all of that. So my point is, I don't want to make you go through an intense explanation on this right
Got it.
now,
Yep.
because
I
it's not really
Yeah.
necessary.
So what we'll do is, this is the application, I have to say, if all applications were as complete and thorough as this one, our lives would be probably a lot easier. And you do have a cost benefit tool using our new software with MRB Group. So it does provide you a deeper dive, but we also will provide you that third party analysis with NDC that will get sent to the board. And then from there, we can determine if and when a public hearing date would be scheduled. So that will be kind of the new process moving forward on these.
Okay, all right, so then what we'll do today, and one of the other factors too is when we review this is, I like to hit, we'll probably have the developers. I like to also have someone from Boscov's on board too, because this is obviously will be impacting them as well. Because I know, for example, the second floor of the parking ramp goes over the men's department in Boscov's. So I would be interested in how all that's going to play into the store and so forth. So that's all things we can see how things play out, because some of this will probably be starting even before we meet again. So at this point, I guess, unless there's any preliminary questions for Stacy on what we're doing, I'll entertain a motion to accept the application.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second, Brian.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion is carried. Next item on the agenda is a review, discussion, recommendation to accept an application from PM Property Matters LLC and authorizing a sales and use tax exemption in an amount not to exceed $13,720, consistent with the policies of the agency in connection with the acquisition, expansion, renovation, and equipping of the property and building located at 21 Emma Street in the city of Binghamton. Stacy.
Yes, thank you. So you do have an application from PM Property Matters LLC located in Ithaca, New York. And I do believe is Andrew on the call? We do have Andrew Kragetz. I don't want to mispronounce your last name there, Andrew. My apologies if I did, to answer additional questions, but I can give you a summary of this project seeking a small business incentive or a sales tax incentive exemption from us. PM Press is transitioning its global distribution center, event space, and headquarters from Oakland, California to upstate New York. 21 Emma Street in the city of Binghamton will be the new shipping receiving center, processing over $1 million in book orders annually, an event and book fair space. PM Press is also acquiring Autumn Leaves on the Ithaca Commons as a retail outlet. We anticipate the full cost of the transition to be approximately $1 million, including building acquisition, new construction improvements, and equipment purchase, an associated cost total of $853,500. Remainder is shipping costs and added employee costs and accommodations. With regard to the facility that they are purchasing at 21 Emma Street, upgrades and additions are needed on the property to create a safe and attractive environment for their core operations. Also doing some safety upgrades, minor repairs, and extensive cleaning, as the facility was vacant for almost a decade. And as well, they will need to purchase equipment for warehouse operations and maintenance in addition to office equipment. PM Press expects to have at least 3 full-time employees to operate the facility. 2 will be at the facility full-time, and another will be within PM to assist with core operations during busy peak times of the operations. And at least 1 other FTE will be located in Ithaca. As part of their transition, they will need to purchase equipment to operate the warehouse and office facilities, install new software such as phone systems and Wi-Fi networks. So with regard to details of the project, after taking possession of the building, PM Press will work with the city of Binghamton, New York State, and private contractors to repair, improve, or remove the concrete wall. And as well, they will have expenditures related to removing this dangerous eyesore, and committed to working with the government partners and arriving at a positive solution for the neighborhood and improving the neighborhood. Further anticipated costs include shipping inventory from Oakland to Binghamton, new employee costs, and paying employees to come to Binghamton for assistance during setup process. With regard to the cost, total project costs, as was noted, was just shy of about $1 million, $944,500, of which they are eligible for a sales tax exemption totaling $171,500. Any questions from the board?
Just to
Or the
be clear,
governance
the actual
committee, I'm sorry.
exemption is only 13,720.
Thank you, Mallory.
Yeah, sorry, the expenditures are the ones that.
Read the wrong line. Thank you.
That's okay.
It's the line
I
I
above.
was wondering where I saw
Oh,
that.
you were like, yeah, no, I just went up a line. It was right above me, yeah.
Andy was popping champagne corks when he saw that.
Yeah. I know. He said, I didn't know I was getting that much. Thank you for that clarification, Mallory.
Okay, and Andy, just a point of information, you're always welcome to open a retail establishment in the city of Binghamton as well.
I mean, actually, to that point, one of the things that we're trying to do with the new warehouse is to have at least annual book sales.
Oh, that'd be good.
Like remember Penguin Putnam used
Yeah.
to do book sales.
They do
So
very well. Yeah.
Yep. So we're hoping to do something very similar to that, and also attract, to make it more attractive, invite vendors from around the country to participate in that, book vendors, but also, food vendors and what have you, to make it more of a festive atmosphere. And eventually, we're not sure we're going to get to it this year, but we're going to work to build a venue space for author talks. That can also function for other, like small gatherings and things like that, as part of the warehouse. So that's something that we're working on doing as well. And I've already been in conversation with the city of Binghamton about that. It's not, we didn't include all that I include part of that in this, but not the full thing, just because there's a lot of unknowns. As you can see, I'm actually in Oakland right now at our old warehouse. Oh, excuse me. Which is why I have my hat on, because it's not as warm out here as I was anticipating coming from Binghamton. I have the right to someone about that.
Probably warmer in Binghamton. Yeah.
Yeah, it might be actually right now. I have my thermals on.
All right, very good. That's good news. It's good to hear. Are there any questions for either Andy or Stacy regarding this resolution? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion.
Motion Cheryl, is there a second?
Second, Brian.
Second, Brian, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, good luck, Andy.
Good luck.
Thank you all. And I'll see you all at noon, yes?
Yes,
Okay, thank you. I'll see you at noon.
Thank you.
the next item on the agenda is review, discussion, recommendation to approve an extension of the December 20th, 2019 sales and use tax exemption agreement with Canopy Growth USA LLC and HIP New York Developments LLC from December 31st, 2021 through and including December 31st, 2022, the total of which shall not exceed $3,200,000. Stacy.
Yes, again, I mean, this sort of follows the theme of just delayed project timelines with regard to cost increases, supply chain delays, and labor shortages. However, this one is a little more unique in that it's also connected with regard to state regulations on the processing of hemp. There was a lot of progress in 2020 to move this forward in 2020, but COVID sort of made that a back burner priority. We have had extensive conversations with Canopy Growth. They are still very committed to their facility in the town of Kirkwood. They still have Lid Chase on board to do the fit out at the appropriate time they are ready to go. They are just seeking a little extra time on this as well through the end of next year.
Have they started the project?
They did do some fit out. What they're waiting on, my understanding is continued, I guess, clarification on New York State regulations with regard to what type of products can and cannot be processed within New York State. I mean, I know they've always noted, I think, and disclosed from day one that they do have interest in getting into adult use. Now that it's been legalized in New York State, that's certainly something they're tracking, but since they are publicly traded, they really can't do anything with that until if and when it becomes legal at the federal level. So their focus is still on doing hemp-based product. They're just still in a process of going through regulations with the state to ensure their product line. So it's just taking them a good deal longer than they wanted.
Okay. Any other questions for Stacy or comments?
Just trying to understand. I mean, I get everything you've explained. Is there any downside to, let's just say for the sake of argument that this goes on not for another year, but for 4 years? Is there any downside to us?
I think it's a great question, and I think there does become that, but I do think that we're still seeing a lot of fallout related to COVID. So I think, another full year is reasonable to accommodate, but after that, I would suggest that anything that comes in 2022, similar requests, that we take maybe a much deeper look at. We're seeing this across the board with construction cost increases, delays on timing of materials, labor. We're just seeing, and it's a common theme. If it was, sort of one or two, then maybe. But so I do feel like we're still sort of in that fallout from COVID. But I think after next year, I think we may want to revisit it in a little more deeper detail with some of these.
I mean, their motivation seems to be also about regulatory issues,
Yeah.
and I'm more skeptical that they resolve themselves in that year timeframe.
I would
All
tend to agree.
I'm trying to do is understand, is there any real downside? And your point is, if we, take a harder look at a year, we don't lose much of that.
Yeah, and I do, I mean, we're seeing this even just, kind of wearing the other hat with as we talk to businesses within the chamber. We knew there was immediate impact in 2020 with businesses. from a financial perspective and a planned expansion or anything like that. We knew 2020 was hard hitting, but we really saw a lot more fallout of that financial impact in 2021 than we even did in 2020. So that's why, I think after this, like if many of these come back to us again, I would probably be more skeptical, but I do think to set them up for success this year does make sense.
Thank you.
I agree. I also think, if they do come back again, we ought to look at the job projections also and make sure those are consistent with what they originally committed to when they first filed the application. But yeah, it has been a crazy year with all the things you've outlined. And so at this point, for a lot of these, it does make sense to give them the benefit of the doubt, I think. So any other comments or questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion.
Cheryl, you got it.
Should beat you to it.
Great
Is there a
mind.
second?
Jim,
Jim second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion is carried. Okay, next, I think we have review, discussion, recommendation regarding the conflict of interest policy.
Yeah, this just came out of every year staff attends New York State Economic Development Council hosts 2 per year. They call them IDA Academies. This is just general information and education sessions for IDAs and local development corporations. There is always a session or 2 with the authorities budget office, which is our oversight, our governing, if you will, our oversight office as a public authority within New York State. I just wanted to kind of revisit this, and per John's request that we do this as well during session. I sent this to you previously on the authorities budget office recommended practice for conflict of interest policy for public authorities. I spent a lot of time encouraging public authorities to revisit and make sure the practices are in place. I don't know what the impetus for that was specifically, but we thought it was a good time to revisit. So looking at this, I provided materials. I think one point of recommendation would be to strengthen our processes. One of the things that was, to be quite frank, was new to me was including your governance committee in the notification of conflicts. Typically, we will get a note from a board member if there is a potential conflict or sometime therein within the structure of a meeting. So one of the things that was new to us was that we recommend that governance, so i.e. the chair of the governance committee, the director and council be notified of any conflicts of interest there, so council can review and advise if there is any reason, if it is a conflict or not. So what we wanted to just have a discussion on that. If there were questions, points of clarification on our process, what we're recommending internally as staff is that when we do send out agendas, typically a week prior, if any board members could notify myself, Joe Mayer, and Rich Bucci as chair of governance committee of that conflict, we can then make that determination, because sometimes there are questions if it is in fact a conflict or not, and that gives Joe time to review if necessary. So really, it's more just a modification of our process and making sure we're adhering to those recommended practices and putting more of a regular structure in place with regard to that.
it is, just so I'm clear, what you're asking for is a motion to accept the document that's titled Conflicts of Interest?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, this would be, I'm sorry, and this is a summary more or less of the ABO's document. So I included this
but-
sort of short form.
But that would be our policy?
Yes,
Okay.
that would be the practice in place. And yeah,
I just have one question. So Stacy, if a member contacts us and says they believe they have a conflict, is Joe going to make a determination then if the conflict is valid or not?
yes,
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
So,
okay.
and then
Yeah.
assuming it is, so if I have, I want to make sure I understand this.
Yeah,
So if
absolutely.
I have a conflict, I notify Joe, the governance, and you have a conflict. You tell me that it's a legitimate conflict. The topic comes up. I need to step out while the topic's being discussed. I step back in after it happens.
Well, it depends on the degree of the conflict, okay? And we've run into this before. There's what is known as a prohibitive conflict, which is one where you're getting a direct financial benefit from the agency,
Okay,
okay? If that's the case, you have to resign.
okay,
Because we had, years ago, did follow the practice that everyone
okay.
used to follow, of you announce your conflict, you recuse yourself, come back in after the vote. And ABO criticized us.
Okay.
Okay, so in any event,
Other than a prohibited conflict,
it would be that
that
process.
process.
Yeah.
Okay,
I guess what they're getting at is we usually get issues regarding a conflict right at the board, you know, and there isn't time to really absorb it, contemplate it, and give some direction.
I think part of this is ABO's desire and this coming through the state association is standardizing a lot, among IDAs, all of the practices and procedures, because even on things like cost benefits and all of the processes, which can be challenging to do, but I'm assuming this is part of that effort of a standardized process. So maybe they're not getting so much coming back at them,
Right.
and then so there's been a lot of things, a lot of processes with IDAs and LDCs that they want basically a uniform statewide process. They don't want any IDAs to kind of vary in how they implement and do some of their processes. So that's, I think, where this is stemming from. So, any questions?
So at the meeting with the person, then for the record, we have to state for the record that that particular person has a conflict of interest.
What we're saying is prior to, so, yeah, so when the agenda is out, a notification prior to myself, to you as governance chair, and to Joe.
Right, but then at the meeting, do we have to say anything at the meeting? Let's say the governance committee meeting, a member has a conflict and is leaving the room. Should we
Yeah.
state that for the record, or?
Does have to be
Has
on
to
the
be in the
record, thank you.
Yeah, okay. That's what I wanted to make sure that we would state for the record, person X is leaving because of a conflict. Okay. Any additional questions or comments?
One comment, the conflict of interest is defined kind of right in the law. It's really kind of more narrow. So are we, I know people abstain even though it may not be truly a conflict, but there might be an appearance. Is the thought process that we want those sent as well, even though it's not a conflict, but there's an uncomfortableness? Are we sending those as well?
I think it's a self-determination. Once you review it, you may have either a direct conflict, or you may have just an appearance and you would feel more comfortable abstaining and recusing. But we should know about it
Yeah.
in advance.
I think just notification
Okay.
would be-
but
Yeah.
is the process then the same though? By the process, I mean, if I feel like I kind of have a conflict, or at least it's an appearance.
It's an
prior,
appearance.
right? So I still need recuse, step out. Okay,
You shouldn't, for example, if you're going to declare, I guess what we've had in the past is,
you sit
and
here.
I'm not faulting anybody, but they'll stay, discuss it, state their point of view, and when it gets down to vote, guys, I gotta leave the room, forget about that contract with my wife.
What they did state during the training was that if you have that feeling that maybe it should probably just be best practice just to submit it and have Joe review it to tell you.
And then okay, that makes sense.
Joe, one other quick question. So would you ever, if someone said, I believe I have the appearance of a conflict, and they state it, would you ever say, you know what? I think you should vote because that really doesn't rise to the level of a conflict?
Oh, yeah, I would. I mean, a lot of people have asked
Yeah.
in different circumstances.
Sometimes people will
I go to that
say-
church, or, you know, any number of different organizations that one could belong to, and we've said, no, it really isn't a conflict. But again, even though we may say it's not a conflict, people may say, well, it's an appearance and I would like to avoid that. So.
And then you treat it.
follow The procedure.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion.
I'll move it, Brian.
Is there a second?
Jim?
Second, Jim, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Are we moving into executive session, Stacy?
I don't believe so. We do have one planned, a project update for regular board
Okay.
meeting. So I think there's really, I don't see any need to go into executive at this point in time.
Okay,
Can I make one comment on the conflict of interest, more tangential? Can we try to make sure that we get, since we're going into a formalized process here, can we kind of make sure that we avoid, especially in the open meetings law change, revising the agendas so late and closer to board meetings? Because it does have an issue for some of us that actually do run conflict searches. So, really getting that agenda that week in advance and not revising it, that does cause issues.
Okay, that's, yep, well noted and, yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
okay, if there's I don't think there's any new business at this time. Entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion,
I move.
Cheryl, is there a second?
Second, Brian.
Second, Brian, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're adjourned. So do we have to end, Stacy, we have to end this meeting and restart it for LDC?
Give me 1 second.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Goes into effect January 1 or whatever.
I'm sorry, what was that? Dan?
A law that says you have to have, if it's an open meeting, you can't revise it.
Within 24 hours.
Oh, 24 hours.
Yeah, you have
is
up
fine.
to 24 hours prior to make any modifications, revisions, yeah.
We're set, Rich, on my end.
Okay. We're all set. We're going to call the governance committee of the Broome County Local Development Corporation to order. The first item on the agenda is to accept the November 15th, 2021 governance committee meeting transcript. This was forwarded to all members. They had an opportunity to review it. Any revisions have been incorporated into the transcript, so we'll accept that for the record. Next item on the agenda is public comment. If there's anyone wishing to address the governance committee, either virtually or in person, they have 5 minutes. We ask that you state your name and address. We'll open that portion of the meeting at this time. Hearing or seeing none, we'll close the public comment section and move on to our agenda items. Now, my understanding, Stacy, is that there's going to be a presentation in executive session relative to these two items on the agenda. So we're going, since the presentation is relevant to this, we're going to table these items and they will be discussed at the regular LDC board meeting. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. That would be my recommendation. We will have an update with regard to the project status, potential occupants therein, and these items as well as funds to assist the redevelopment. So my recommendation would be to table these so that the full board, so the governance committee and the full board can hear that all at the same time and then go into a regular LDC meeting with that information.
Okay. Is there any questions or comments regarding to the motion or recommendation to table? So I need a formal motion to table.
You do, yes, you do.
Okay, is there a motion to table agenda items 4 and 5 until we review new information in executive session, and then they will be discussed at the open LDC meeting later on this afternoon?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to table items 4 and 5.
Is there a second?
Jim,
Second, Jim, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Jim,
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The meeting is adjourned. So we will reconvene